Welcome, dear bookworm. This is Vasil, the Backwater Librarian, the channel with a knack for good old-school weird fiction. Today I'm paying my humble tribute to the grand titan of weird fiction, the father of cosmic horror, the creator of the Cthulhu mythos, the one and only Howard Phillips Lovecraft. 20th of August, 2023, the day I'm posting this video, marks exactly 133 years since his birth. So, happy birthday, Howard! In case you haven't come across him, hereby a very short introduction. H.P. Lovecraft was born in 1890 in Providence, Rhode Island, and spent most of his life not far from home, rarely even venturing outside of the New England region. His father suffered of mental issues and died when Howard was only 8 years old, and his mother died of cancer later on. Howard grew up a physically weak and reclusive young man and never obtained any official degree. There was a short episode where he went to New York, got married and tried to make a life for himself, but soon realized that was not his thing. He returned to his native Providence, where he lived until 1937, when he died of intestinal cancer at the early age of 46. He didn't leave any offspring nor any substantial material wealth behind him. Most of his humble livelihood came from publishing his stories in pulp magazines. They didn't get any widespread acknowledgement during his lifetime. A pretty unremarkable life, eh? So why all the fuss? Well, dear bookworm, because despite all the above, this reclusive, xenophobic, dolichocephalic Rhode Islander was a truly remarkable gentleman indeed. His parents themselves might have been physically and mentally degraded, but his bloodline ran all the way back to medieval English nobility. He might not have obtained a fancy college degree, but he was self-educated, cultured, sensitive, and exceptionally well-read. He might not have been a roaring 20s socialite, but he led a meaningful epistolar correspondence with his fellow writers. Lastly, he might not have left any material wealth nor offspring. However, he left us his original, memorable, and inspiring body of writing. He wrote mostly short stories and novellas in the horror, fantasy, and science fiction genre, his best ones forming the canon of what we call today the Cthulhu mythos. The gist of his stories is this: short-sighted and self-centered humanity unknowingly shares the universe with entities of vast age, size, and power, which might seem like gods to us mere mortals. While seemingly all-powerful, they are indifferent to humanity, unlike the gods of our earthly religions. Their purpose, goals, thoughts, their way of existence have nothing in common with us humans, and they remain unknowable to us. To peek into the existence of such an entity is to invite psyche-rending madness. Let me help you out with a simile. Imagine an ant. It is part of an ant colony with its actually quite sophisticated internal structure. It has an ant queen, flying scout ants, worker ants, and ants warriors. This ant of ours does its duty within the ant colony and actually feels quite good about itself and about its place in the ant world. Now, imagine if one day it is to find out about the immeasurably vast, complex, and alien world of humans, our culture, our literature, our social structures, but also concepts like jealousy, greed, anger. So in Lovecraft's universe, we are the ants, and the stupendous, indecipherable world of the cosmic entities looms above us. These great old ones, as they are called, used to possess the earth and are due to come back and indifferently sweep away laughable ant-like humanity. So out of this premise arose his most popular stories. Pieces like The Call of Cthulhu, the quintessential Lovecraft story, The Shadow over Innsmouth, thick in local New England atmosphere, the interdimensional horrors of The Dreams in the Witch House, my favorite, the jaw-dropping At the Mountains of Madness.
That one right there made you the greatest player of all time.
And many more. Now, although these stories don't cater to my Christian worldview, they actually oppose it or simply dismiss it, I still enjoy reading them. They provide a much needed escapist outlet from what can at times become a mundane, banal existence. It's also worth mentioning that not all of his stories fall into the category of cosmic horror. Not all of them are part of the Cthulhu mythos. Some of them have a more traditional Gothic vibe, though always with some scientific or quasi-scientific explanation of the supernatural events in them. These stories also tend to be A-grade horror. I can think of The Shunned House as a great example. The way he masterfully dissects the history of the haunting, slowly peeling back the layers in order to reveal the reason for it. And when the final revelation comes at the very end, you feel as if hit by a baseball bat. Another aspect of his stories I find very enjoyable is that many of them, being set in the 20s and 30s, have this atmosphere of coziness, of a type of old school, vintage aesthetic. His protagonists are usually learned men in three-piece suits. They spend their days researching in some library or some university, or they simply roam around on cobbled streets in quiet, sleepy New England towns, looking for rare books in back alley bookshops. You know, with the superficial, faux, vintage style being all the rage these days, it is nice to remember how the gentlemen of Providence served us some real OG vintage delights. Sadly, the culture wars of today haven't passed Lovecraft by, and certain parts of Western society, leftist mobs, have been trying to taint his legacy.
The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic.
First of all, I'll put it this way. So, what if he really held some problematic views? What if he really was an unlikable person? Haven't there been individuals who've excelled at their craft while not having the most likable personality? Take for example Michael Jordan, the best basketball player of all time. And yes, by the way, MJ is the best, not LeBron. We can brawl it out in the back of the barn later. He had notoriously high standards and was very demanding of his teammates, not shying away from putting them down or even downright insulting them, so much so that some of them even left the Bulls altogether. Nevertheless, it's undeniable that he was a virtuoso with the ball, a household name who made the game of basketball popular worldwide. Why should we regard Lovecraft any differently? If he was the best, or at the very least among the best at what he did, shouldn't we just enjoy his stories for what they are, without throwing his persona under the bus? That point aside though, having read all of his fictional works, I'd say that he was more of a general xenophobe than a classical racist. He showed dislike not only towards what the contemporary left terms people of color, but also against many white nationalities as well. Italians, Poles, Russians, Serbs. Heck, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't like me as his neighbor either. Be that as it may, it seems that in time he sincerely moderated his views, a fact that many today tend to overlook and persist in crucifying him at every opportunity instead. On that note, I'm tossing this topic out the window and will probably never return to it again. His unique stories transcend our petty interspecies squabbles, and I do believe they will be read and loved long after this contemporary clown world peters out. But where is my personal stake in all of this? Why do I seem nigh obsessed with this New England introvert? Well, much like undying Cthulhu sending his dream visions to sensitive minds, so did Lovecraft send me his stories from beyond the grave and call me back to the wondrous world of reading. You know, right up to when I went to university, I used to really enjoy reading fiction. When I started my studies, however, I had to understandably dial back on my reading and concentrate instead on my academic pursuits. Later, when I transitioned into the workforce, I unfortunately didn't come back to it, but somehow drifted towards other hobbies like hiking or sports. It wasn't until 2017 when I first encountered Lovecraft by accident that I started reading again. His stories felt so different than anything I've read before. I was absolutely blown away. I binge read many of them, and when I finally got satiated by Lovecraft, at least for the time being, my general appetite as a reader remained. I rediscovered reading, especially fiction, as a hobby, and my life has felt much richer and more satisfying for it. So, thank you, Lovecraft, for the dreams and the nightmares, for the escapism and the food for thought you've so generously provided. Thank you. So, in a way, if it wasn't for Lovecraft, this humble channel of mine wouldn't exist either. Nevertheless, I'll have to point out that this won't be a dedicated Lovecraft channel. But before you click away, I promise you that a big chunk of it will be dedicated to old school weird fiction. Machen, Blackwood, Hodgson, Bachan, the Benson brothers, and yes, Lovecraft. I plan to touch on some of his not so often discussed stories, and we'll see how it goes. If you want to go in depth with his life and works right away and have a nice laugh while you're at it, I warmly recommend you The Arkham Reporter. This guy is an independent creator like myself and is deep into Lovecraft, mind, heart and soul. He has a great back catalog of videos, so go check him out. That's it for today, guys. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Did you enjoy my little tribute, or did you find it just a useless ramble? Have you read Lovecraft stories, and how do you find them? If you haven't, are you looking forward to it? And if you're excited about what this channel plans to offer, I'd really appreciate it if you'd drop a like and subscribe. And remember, the Backwater Librarian guides you through the obscure pathways of literature. Thank you for watching and pleasant reading.